So if you were Wile E. Coyote, you might go to a law firm because you want to sue that Acme company because they keep selling you dangerous and defective products that get boulders dropped on your head. But what if the lawyer said he couldn't take the case because of a conflict of interest? What does that mean? Well, in just a moment, I'll explain. Conflicts of interest are the things that drive lawyers to not sleep particularly well at night. They have to keep track of everybody that they have helped over that period of time because there are rules that say you can't represent people who may have a conflict with a former client. For example, let's suppose Mr. and Mrs. Doe want to get divorced. And Mr. Doe comes to me and says, I want to divorce my wife. And I say, okay, I will represent you. And he tells me all about the problems that they've had. And we go through the process and we get him divorced. And several years later, somebody else comes along, Mr. Smith, and he wants to sue Mr. Doe. Well, because I've represented Mr. Doe in the past and I may have information that I obtained in that representation that makes it difficult for me to separate out what I know and what I don't know. As a lawyer, I'm required, if I believe there's a conflict of interest, to pass on that case. Lawyers routinely pass on cases where they may have represented an opponent in other litigation. And sometimes, for example, when we are asked to do things like mediate a case for someone, we ask the client, or we ask the mediation person, to sign an agreement that we are not representing them, that we are acting as a neutral party to help them facilitate an agreement with the other person. And so for that reason, we would not have a conflict of interest later on. For example, several years ago, I was asked to write an article by a company, and they offered to pay me money to write that article. I declined their offer to accept payment for writing an article that I would have written anyway. And I also secured from them an agreement that I would never be held to have been their lawyer. I wasn't asked to be their lawyer. They didn't pay me to be their lawyer. But I didn't want to create a situation where at some future time I might not be able to represent a client against them. And lo and behold, several years later, I had that case come in, and it was a pretty good sized one. So lawyers take pains to make sure that they are not going to have a conflict of interest with a defendant or with a client of any variety. And the reason they do that is because a lawyer has a duty to protect the interests of the client and to put the client's interest first. And he can't do that if he is going to later turn around and stab that client in the back in a different case, especially if he gathered confidential information that he then used against that client. Now, if you suspect that a lawyer has violated the conflict of interest rules, you can make a complaint to the state bar. Almost every state bar has either an Office of Disciplinary Counsel or a disciplinary panel that can help you in that regard. If you found this information helpful, I hope that you will press the like button and click on the subscribe icon and press the notification bell so that you can be notified anytime I release a video here. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.